They're going for broke right now. They're going to steal our wealth. This isn't just in Canada. This isn't just in Cyprus and Australia. It is every country around the world. They're going for it. They're going to take our bank accounts.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. I have on the line David Quintieri. He's the author of The Money GPS. He has a great YouTube channel called The Money GPS. David, how are you?
I'm doing really well. I wanted to say before I forget, I had watched The Madness of the Law Society, your mini docs, and it just lit a fire under my backside, let's say. It just really hit home for me, and I made my own sort of mini doc because of that.
Well, and I believe yours is called A New World Order, Descent into Tyranny.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one that I did because I saw Madness of the Law Society, and I tried to sort of do my own, my own subscribers, just so they can see that.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you mentioning that. That was sort of a labor of love that just came out of nowhere. We were driving home from Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law's, and I just could not believe what I'd seen on the news with all those crazy people standing in lines and all those stampedes. It's amazing that people are capable of such really barbarous behavior. You know, they always say gold is a barbarous relic. It's a real misuse of the word barbarous. But in the case of the idiots in this country that just worship at the altar of cheaply made Chinese slave goods,
that's right.
It floored me. It just really floored me.
Maybe we can even sort of get into that, but basically how we have 50 million people on food stamps. I shouldn't say we, I'm Canadian, but there are 50 million people on food stamps, but at the same time, these people are then lined up for a week to buy some Air Jordans.
Right.
And, there's that disparity there. Where are they getting this money? Do they even, can they even afford it and all this sort of thing? So,
well, I do think that there is an absolute fissure in the heart of our culture in this country. There has been a specific and systematic goal to dumb down the public, and Charlotte Iserbyt has talked about that at length in her book.
Oh yeah,
The Dumbing Down of America.
I read it.
Did
yeah,
you really?
One of the most. You can read. You get to about 20% through of that book, and you have enough information you'd ever need, enough proof and documentation, and then it just goes on and on and on, and it's so obvious, it's so clear, it's documented, it's public, all that information's there.
Yeah, and the fact that they're rolling out Common Core now, and that they want to, they're literally systematically trying to dumb down the public. So I think it ties in. This all ties in, and that's why these people are indoctrinated not to care about very much other than, commercially made Chinese slave goods. When did we have you on? We talked to you about
it. Must have been a year ago or something.
Yeah, I was going to say. Is that about the time the book was coming out?
It was after. I'm pretty sure it was after.
Okay.
And I remember my YouTube channel was basically non-existent practically.
Yeah. Well, you've got 3,600 subs now.
Yeah. Actually, you gave me a huge boost after I was on your show. It really took off after that.
Oh, that's great. Well,
I appreciate that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. That's the goal. That's absolutely the goal. Yeah, we post all your videos too when you put them out.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
I appreciate that.
Good stuff. We have so much to talk about. I know that you and I have similar concerns about the world economy. You're in Canada, I guess, for the record. We should let everybody know. So just like my last guest, John from Smart Knowledge U, David, you're outside the bounds of this criminal empire known as the United States. So maybe you can give us your perspective outside looking in. But I want to talk to you first about hyperinflation, inflation in general. The Fed says, the powers that be in this country say that inflation is very, very low, running maybe 2% a year, when in fact I think many of us paying attention would argue it's closer to 2% a month at this point. David, what's your take on what you're seeing in terms of inflation and possible hyperinflation?
Well, what I see is that the numbers the government provides us with are completely fictional. There's no way around this. It's very funny, actually, to read the government reports. I use them as a sort of comic relief for myself to see how fictional everything is. Now, specifically to stay on this topic of inflation, all you need to do is go to the store to get your inflationary statistics. When you're going to the store, you're buying up the produce or whatever it might be, chances are it's more expensive now than it was last year. And it's not 1% or 2% like they try to push on us. It is significantly increased. I've noticed in certain aspects here 20 to 30% increase from last year to this year. And if you look at how much the Federal Reserve has been printing, look at their balance sheet. That's what they're showing us. They're now exceeded $4 trillion on their balance sheet. And just think back when they printed the $16 trillion that when they really got that limited audit there of the Fed, $16 trillion, that's what they found in a limited audit. Who knows how much they're printing? They could have printed hundreds of trillions of dollars, given it to banks, institutions, and who knows who else all around the world. That's real inflation. It is the increase of the money supply, and the result of which is an increase in prices.
Yeah, and now we see even insiders at the Fed coming out and publicly saying, the Fed and fiat money cannot build real wealth. I think, David, that the fact of the matter is that the whole world knows that the printing presses cannot solve the problem, but that is the only answer that these crazy, insane people at the central banks have, is to print, print, print.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're basically fueling their own system. It has nothing to do with us. Basically, we're simply just pawns in this game. They're going to use us and abuse us, and really they need to fund their own pockets. So they get that money prior to the inflation kicking in. So it's all good for them. However, we get what comes down the line, and that is a basically useless paper money. Now, we can get into where you should be putting your money in just a second, but all I'm saying is if you're in this game, if you're in the paper game, you're in a manipulated system. So if you find yourself outside of that system, you're protected. You're not on the inside. People want to invest in the stocks, and you may make a fortune in these stocks, sure, but you're not on the inside. Your name is not Warren Buffett. You're not getting sweetheart deals, so you can't play the same game as them.
I think we need to talk now about precious metals specifically. There's a couple of topics I want to talk to you about. One of which is that if we know inflation is on the rise and we're seeing signs of it everywhere, we also know that according to John Williams and Jeff Nielsen from Bullion Bulls Canada, from Andy Hoffman, from you, hyperinflation cannot be stopped. It will come. There is no way to reverse the money that's already been printed, and sooner or later the chickens will come home to roost. If we know that's the case, the only way that we can, because to your point, we're not an insider in their game. The only way that you can really become your own insider, the only way you can beat these guys at their own game is to be your own central bank, which I think Jim Sinclair has said. The point being, buy physical precious metals, right? Silver and gold in physical form. And the reason that that is so important, as we know, David, is it's the only way to protect real wealth, to hold real wealth when they hyperinflate the currency away and the paper markets crash. Now, first I want your thoughts on that. Then I want to read you an article from Bloomberg. But your thoughts right now on precious metals.
Precious metals are the most important asset to hold, and specifically because they hold value over time. Now, you can think of the price currently in the market. Let's say gold is at $1,000 an ounce. You may think, wow, it's at $1,000 an ounce, but tomorrow it might be 800 or 300 or 2,000 or whatever. You don't hold gold and silver because you suspect it's going to go up or down. You hold silver to preserve wealth. That's my specialty, is the preservation of wealth. And historically, thousands upon thousands of years, you've heard it before, gold and silver have been money. This is really one of the themes of my book, is basically that they hold value over time. We don't know what's going to happen after the collapse. They're going to institute some sort of new form of currency, perhaps. We don't know. But all we know is that gold and silver will maintain value over time. You know that your paper dollars, if your great-grandparents had given you some paper currency, perhaps they worked really hard and saved up a whole $5, and then they passed that down to their family in generation, you would be left with nothing more than, not even a McDonald's burger to go and buy. So that really says something about that paper currency. But if they had that little tiny coin, a little tiny gold coin, and they handed it down and down from generation to generation, you'd be left with real value. That's what it represents.
That's absolutely right. And the reason we wanted to hit on that is because, to your point, it's the only way you will be able to transition wealth from this crashing system to whatever system is coming next, whatever that may be, and we don't know what that will be. But paper dollars will not transition to the new system. And they may, but they may be worth 98% less than they're worth now, for instance. Now, I just want to read this to you from Bloomberg. We posted this on June 19th. Let me just read you the first couple paragraphs and then my take on it, because I think this is a really great recap for people so that they understand the value right now of current prices in the precious metals. So Nicholas Larkin at Bloomberg writes, proposals to replace the 117-year-old system of fixing prices for the $5 trillion silver market are poised to add more transparency for the London benchmark used in the $18 trillion gold industry as well. Jumping down to the third paragraph, he says, an LBMA survey last month showed the markets want a new silver system to be an electronic, auction-based process with more direct participants and prices that can be used in trades. Okay, so the third paragraph sounds like, yeah, some sort of quasi-market would be allowed to, determine real prices. But here's the important part. The title of this article was Breaking New Silver Pricing Benchmark Seen as Heralding a Gold Fix Revamp as Well. Here was my take, David. Stop the presses. Please read and reread the first sentence. So let's do that. Proposals to replace the 117-year-old system of fixing prices for the $5 trillion silver market, right? So jump back up to the editor's note. According to the author, the silver market is a $5 trillion market. I guess, David, that must be when you account for all of the fraudulent paper that's in the system. And my take is that if Bloomberg is telling you that the silver market is a $5 trillion market, despite the fact that there's only, maybe 700 million ounces of physical silver mined out of the ground every year, David, how in the world could silver be a $5 trillion market? And then beyond that, in the same article, how could the gold market only be worth 18 trillion if Nicholas is valuing the silver market at 5 trillion? And the answer is there has to be a lot more fraudulent paper silver out there than there is even gold. It's insane. What's your take on that?
I don't ever look at the prices of gold and silver. Now that I've looked into this for years and years, I'm really researching what the price of anything is now. What we're looking into with the silver and gold prices are all fraudulent. They're making up these numbers. It's totally insignificant to its actual value. So when you actually determine the supply and demand, you really determine how much is there for jewelry, how much for investment, and so on and so forth. Look at the World Gold Council. They give you the updates every quarter to really show you what's happening in the real metal, not the paper markets. You get the reality of the situation. And absolutely, positively, the numbers are a fraud. We need to stop caring that the silver price goes down by $2 today and it's just, oh, this is time to sell, it's time to sell. Nobody holding physical metals is selling. It's all the paper. It's all the ETFs. These are people you don't want in anyway. They're going to end up selling off. They're going to end up trying to take their profits and their losses, and it doesn't matter. The price is going to swing up and down, but if you hold that real physical metal, you have wealth. That's the plain and simple fact. You can't deny that. They're playing with these markets, and they send them up and down. They have high-frequency trading that could explode the price if they wanted to, but it doesn't matter because you shouldn't be playing in that game. You hold the physical gold and silver in your possession, mind you, not so-called allocated silver and gold in some bank vault somewhere. You need to hold on to that gold and silver bullion yourself.
Yeah, absolutely you do. And I just want to do some back-of-the-envelope math here on this claim by Nicholas there at Bloomberg, because I think it's really stunning that he would have put it in print and nobody seemed to mind. Certainly in the Mockingbird media sphere, nobody paid any notice to his claim that the silver is a $5 trillion market. Now, guys, back of the envelope math, if we know that there's only 700 million ounces of physical silver mined out of the earth on an annual basis, let's just be generous and round that up by nearly 50%. Let's call it 1 billion ounces a year, okay? 1 billion ounces a year times $20 an ounce is $20 billion. So that's a $20 billion value of the silver market annually. Now, if it's a $5 trillion market, help me with the math here, David. 20 billion times 200 would get us to 4 trillion. So let's go 20 billion times 250 to get to 5 trillion. I guess according to Nicholas, the silver market is 250 times greater than the total value of all the silver mined out of the earth annually. Figure that one out, guys. How much paper must be out there? How much paper high-frequency trading must happen to inflate the silver market by 250 times annually on Wall Street? It's insane.
That's what they're doing. When you really saw that price increase that happened, not too long ago, you were seeing a lot of the paper really pushing that price up as well as the physical. But there has been a slow and steady demand for the physical gold and silver. It hasn't stopped. You're going to see these fluctuations that happen up and down, and I'm sure it will become even more volatile as the years go on. But it doesn't matter because that's the paper they're trying to get in and out of this system with the high frequency trading and so on. It doesn't matter. Just play your own game and be your own central bank, as they said, and that is hold on to the physical, and you'll do just fine.
Well, David, we absolutely must talk about bail-ins. I know you're very passionate about what you're seeing in terms of bail-ins all over the planet right now. We see it in Cyprus. We're actually now seeing it in Australia as the Australian government has announced their plans to seize dormant bank accounts. In fact, they've already done so, and what they're calling dormant bank accounts, David, is any bank account that hasn't had any activity for 3 years or more, which is absolutely insane that they feel they have the right to take something that is somebody else's. They have the right, they think, to take citizens' wealth, I guess without question, because they're assuming those bank accounts have just been abandoned, which is rarely the case. It's insane. I guess the bail-ins really are starting to happen. What's your take on bail-ins?
The bail-ins were a strategy that surprised a lot of people, including myself. I didn't think they would go this route. I thought they would just increase the inflation in order to steal the wealth, but now they've gone to completely criminal levels, and they will succeed at this. It looks like they did it in Cyprus, and they miraculously got through this, and they did it very well because they were able to steal almost the entire bank account of so many people, and they were simply able to do it. Nobody really, there was a little bit of commotion, but it just went through successfully. And then you have the budget report in Canada seen as a really sound banking system. Nothing to worry here, all these nice and calm Canadians. And then you have in their budget report, it says that they will implement a bail-in regime should they need to recapitalize the banks. And I believe that they will need to recapitalize the banks in the future. Why in the world did the Federal Reserve bail out the Canadian banks during the crash? It doesn't make any sense. Something's going on here. They're going for broke right now. They're going to steal our wealth. This isn't just in Canada. This isn't just in Cyprus and Australia. It is every country around the world. They're going for it. They're going to take our bank accounts. Now, we'll say, they're insured. In the U.S., they'll say, the FDIC will insure our money. I have less than 100,000 in there. Don't worry about it. But that's not the case. They're going to first go for the uninsured accounts, and then when they need to recapitalize further, of course they're going to go for this. They don't have enough money to back everyone up. If the Federal Reserve had to print money for everybody, it would just increase its balance sheet. You would have further inflation, and they'll just steal it that way. How many different ways do you want them to do this? They have so many options to take our wealth, and they will succeed at it.
Okay, well, let's talk about what happened domestically here in the United States in terms of maybe a bail-in litmus test. John Corzine's MF Global was certainly a case that we really hadn't seen before. So I think it was fairly unprecedented that allocated customer accounts, money, could literally just vanish, and John Corzine would say, I don't know where it went. It's such a mystery, even though I think most of it tracked back to JP Morgan using it. But the point is that there was such outrage, at least from MF Global customers and account holders in this country, that ultimately I think all of those people were made at least 90% whole. So you can give us your thoughts on that, but I really want to ask you, do you think it's bizarre we're not seeing outrage in Australia over this absolutely unprecedented nonsense that they're just going to seize dormant bank accounts of property that belongs to their citizens? It's absolutely outrageous. And if they get away with it, David, then I think you're right. They can get away with anything.
What happened with MF Global is simply, the tip of the iceberg, really. What's happening in Australia hasn't really blown up yet. It is only after it's too late that the people wake up. And people are simply zombies. They're sheeple, as many like to call them. they're walking around, they're worried about their Air Jordans, and they're not worried about a coming collapse because they think, well, I have people to deal with that. I give my money to the financial advisor. I let my Obama will take care of everything. I've got an Obama phone. I've got Obamacare. He's taking care of everything. Why should I need to worry? If something's going to happen to my bank, I have insurance. The FDIC will insure it. I don't need to worry. But that's where we've run our course right now. We're beyond the point of revitalizing this current system. It is in control, complete control of the bankers. They own it, they control it. The leaders of our government, politicians, they work for the bankers. You cannot expect anything in this system, the banking, just for example, the bank accounts, to be under our own control. Just because it has your name on that bank account, it belongs to the banks. So you need to realize this, and you need to take control of your own money.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Australia has already taken $360 million from dormant bank accounts. And so I guess they really have gotten away with it, and they'll just continue doing it. There needs to be a revolution, I guess, not only in this country, but apparently in all Western nations. And I guess the people just don't have the stomach for it. Maybe we've come full circle. And, it's insane that a dumbed-down public doesn't value precious metals in physical form. They don't value liberty. They don't value the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. They'll let the NSA get away with anything. The Pentagon gets $500 billion a year, and this country turns into an absolute fascist tyranny. And the people care only about getting a great deal on a $5 sub or a $200 laptop. It's stunning, David.
That's what's happened right now. We no longer are necessarily in the survival mechanisms that a human being should be worried about. The people are basically extremely decadent. They are able to do anything they want. They can go to the extremes in many situations. And the public, the general public, the middle class has to pick up the slack for the rest of the people. That's how it works. So when they use our tax money, whether we like it or not, they're using our tax money to fund and fuel the systems like the food stamp program, which is supporting 50 million people. You have over 100 million people on some sort of food assistance. You have 11 million people on some sort of disability. There's so many factors here which are really scary to look at, because who's left paying this tab? And eventually the middle class will be wiped out, and there will be nobody to pick up the tab except for the Federal Reserve. And that's that point where you have the hyperinflationary possibility.
Well, the Federal Reserve is already picking up the tab by being the buyer of last resort, right? We have the mysterious Belgium buyer of bonds. And it's, you say scary, and I agree, it's scary, right? You just cited all of the facts that should get the average American concerned. But a lot of people would hear you say what you said, or hear me speak about these things and say, oh, you're such a fearmonger. And that's the craziest part of all, David, is that so many people have cognitive dissonance, so many people have normalcy bias, that they don't understand the urgency of anything you just said. And they don't understand the drama and urgency of Russia and China de-dollarizing, Russia specifically. They don't understand that the world's reserve currency is breathing its last breath. They don't understand that the average lifespan of a fiat currency is around 40 years. And what are we in, David, since we came off the gold standard, about year 41?
That's correct. We are well beyond this system right now. If you look, the cracks have already appeared. It's collapsing as we speak. In many ways, it is gone. But it's being supported with central banks around the world colluding together to basically steal the wealth from the citizens. And they're doing this successfully, as we've talked about. They're going to do this, and they're going to bring the system down in order to have that problem reaction solution, the Hegelian dialectic. They're going to have a solution provided for us when it all collapses. That's what they're intending to. At that point, when it does collapse, it could go either way. We could have liberty, or we could have tyranny. And the way they're pushing for is to have some sort of unified currency. I believe that some institution, like the IMF, will have control globally of the currencies around the world. Not necessarily a one world currency, but it will seem to be backed by the IMF. And basically, the IMF or this other institution like it will have to make decisions for our country. So you have like what happened with Greece, for example, where they're unable to make their own decisions in their own country. They had an unelected technocrat in charge. They had all of their finances torn apart. They had islands being sold off. You have assets being sold. The country being completely eviscerated, and all because of the bankers taking control. And I believe that's the model they're going for upon a big collapse that we're headed towards.
Yeah, and you mentioned the IMF may be tasked with coming up with a new world monetary system. Of course, James Rickards, who we suspect as being nothing more than an establishment insider based on his pedigree and his resume, he's been saying that the monetary system is a race between the SDR from the Bank of International Settlements and gold. So clearly gold is something you want to hold, but boy, if James Rickards thinks the SDR is the fix for what ails us, we're all in a hell of a lot of trouble, because the SDR will certainly be some form of currency removed from the power of the people, and it'll just be more of the same. I think the Bank of International Settlements is probably at the top of the pyramid anyway. So if you want to look at that scary pyramid on the back of our dollar bill, just imagine us moving into a new system that's even more tyrannical and less liberty-based than the one we currently have. I mentioned fascism earlier in the interview here too. I mentioned fascism and tyranny earlier here, David, and I want to read you this. Fascism defined: ex-NSA Chief Alexander charges Wall Street $1 million a month for advice. I mean, you want to talk fascism? Let's talk about the relationship between the Pentagon and Wall Street.
Really, what's happened is that there is a revolving door in every system of government. And this isn't just the US, it's every country around the world. They have these big mega corporations that may have different offices around the world, but then their alumni get put into the highest positions of power, whether it's the military-industrial complex, the banking industry, the agricultural, the pharmaceutical, the health industries, and so on and so forth. And all of their alumni are in the positions of power. And then you see where the bailouts go. You see where all the favored regulations are, like the Monsanto Protection Act.
Right.
And you really look at who's in control, and do we even have a semblance of reality left in the system? And the truth is, we don't. So if you're really trying to, expect that change will occur. We had a vote here in Toronto just recently, and I saw the people close to me, they were fighting and arguing, oh, the Liberals are going to take it, they're going to fix everything, oh, the Conservatives are going to take it. It's all a fraud, because they all work for the same people. Look at the campaign contributions. Look who's in charge. It is the mega institutions, the multinational corporations, the supranational entities. They're in control, and they're making the laws.
That's right. They are the puppet masters. David, why don't you tell us what you're working on? I know you wrote the Money GPS. Tell people about what you're working on, and tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Right, so the Money GPS was written, it was published in early 2012, and basically what it talks about is how to prepare for a collapse. It tells you about all the different asset classes, the history, what is inflation, what is unemployment, and the reality of the situation. One reviewer commented that it should be taught in high school. Well, I totally agree about this, because people don't really understand the concepts of how our monetary system works. So this gives you a basic understanding. It shows you with diagrams and charts that I've drawn up myself, and basically people can really easily understand how the financial system works and how to actually take the money that you make in, let's say, your 9-to-5 job, for example, and be able to profit from it and hold and preserve wealth. So that's my book, and basically what I've been doing since then is I've been doing almost daily updates on my YouTube channel, which is the Money GPS. So you can find me on there, and it's grown quite a bit since we last spoke, and I hope to see many new faces and names on there, of course. And essentially what I talk about is, what we talked about here today. And I bring up new information and concepts that are continuous, and simply the idea that we need to preserve our wealth and essentially look at what the media projects onto us and realize that it's all fraudulent. So that's the things I talk about on there. And more recently, I've started the Money GPS Insiders, and that is essentially an email subscription where you get regular updates every so often, and I push out information through there, which is an extension of the work I've done in my book, so people can get free updates in their email inbox.
Yeah, guys, check out the Money GPS on YouTube and subscribe if you get a chance. And we post all of David's videos, of course, at SGT Report because he is one of the trees that bear fruit. That's what we talk about all the time, David. What's the litmus test for truth tellers? Do you talk about the Federal Reserve? Do you understand central banking? Do you understand false flag terror and how governments and corporations use them? Do you understand the definition of fascism, the marriage of corporations with government, which equals corporatocracy, essentially? And you, of course, do, David, and we appreciate your voice. Our guest has been David Quintieri, author of The Money GPS. And is there a website you want to holler out there, David?
Yep, themoneygps.com. That's my website, and essentially it reposts all of the things that are at the Money GPS YouTube channel. You can get me on there, and I hope to see you all there.
Well, very good. David Quintieri, thank you so much. We do appreciate it, and we thank all of you as well for tuning in and listening today. It's very fulfilling to be able to share this information with those who care, so now it's your job to pass it on to others. So thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks for visiting us at SGT Report. Have a great week.